Thursday night on the Krug Show. Dieter's in the house. Let's go right now. All right, welcome to the Krug Show Thursday night. Hope everybody's having a great November the 21st. It's 8:37 West Coast, and that means it's 11:37 East Coast. Ooh, thanks for staying up late. It's the Krug Show brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this live stream is also sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We've been winning consistently. All you got to do is download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does it is automatically entered into a drawing to win a free signed, there it is, Fred Warner red 49er jersey. Will announce the winner at the end of the month of November, which is just days away at this point. We're almost at Thanksgiving. So good luck to all of you, and thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And we've actually won a number of times. I think 5 times already this year. Mm-hmm. We've won on Better, and that's good. That's a good thing.
Love to hear it.
Dieter, good to see you, man. How are you?
Yeah, better than I was last week. It's great. I give so much of my money to my kids' daycare, and she brings home in return all the diseases on the planet. So we've been fending that off, and luckily Hutch was able to stand in here for me. Probably came off a lot better, a lot more likable, but here I am back ready to ruin everyone's night.
Well, Hutch was good. We'll give him that. He was very, very strong, as Hutch has been known to be. But there were a lot of people going, "Where's Dieter? Where's Dieter?" Yeah. So there you go. You were missed. You were missed by the audience.
And we'll see how long that lasts tonight, because this is right in my wheelhouse, Larry. Everything's gone to shit. This is where Dieter thrives.
Tom Pelissaro is reporting. Now, let's see if I can find this on Kev's Twitter.
What was the general gist, if you recall?
Well, Tom Pelissaro, gosh, we just went over this. Now I don't see it. It's on Kev's Twitter. Tom Pelissaro says Purdy's going to be fine for Sunday.
Okay.
So there's a chance that Brock may not be able to go. Yeah. And there you go. So Tom Pelissaro reporting.
You were out there today. I was doing 2 to 6 with Adam Copeland, who is so fortunate to be in Hawaii. But the way that it was described by David Lombardi on Twitter and by Matt Mayoko in his article was that Brock pulled himself out of practice, that he was so bothered by his shoulder after throwing a little bit that he pulled himself out. You were there. Did that line up with your assessment?
Yeah. In fact, let's do this. Before I give you my breakdown on it and how I saw it. Let's Shanahan stopped by on CamBR today.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
He was on with Dieter.
Well, I was doing the show, and the 49ers said that I couldn't ask any questions. I want to be very clear about that. It was a good look for everyone.
Really? Yes. So they said no questions for Adam, but no questions for Dieter.
Correct, because I'm not on the full-time payroll. So isn't that fun?
Really? Okay. Well, here is the segment. You remember it vividly.
Oh, yeah.
About this type of stuff with injuries. But Brock at practice today, there was a report that he didn't complete the practice. Is there any comment on that or anything that you can tell us?
Yeah, he was still limited today. So, we wanted to, he didn't do as much yesterday, did a little bit more today, but by no means was he doing his normal workload. Went out there and did a little bit, and then went back in about halfway through and rested his arm up and just continued to get his rehab. So hopefully it'll be feeling great on Sunday.
Talked about this type of stuff with injuries, but Brock.
So basically yesterday, Purdy was at practice yesterday, but didn't throw at all.
Right.
Today he was at practice and he threw a little bit, and then he stopped throwing. This is in the early portion. A trainer came out, was rubbing his shoulder, the back of his shoulder, and then they jogged over to like the weight room area, and that was it. And by the time if he came back on the field, we were already off at that point. So, I mean, Shanahan, to hear Shanahan describe it, it's like, well, he didn't do much yesterday, but he did a little bit more today, and we're just trying to keep him fresh, ramped up for Sunday.
That's what.
But then also, he didn't do his interview. He didn't do his interview today. So it's like if he was really going to play, he would have done the interview for sure. I think it's still up in the air whether or not he's going to play. I think it's possible it's him. It's possible it's Brandon Allen.
Yeah, and the fact that it would be Brandon Allen and not Josh Dobbs is interesting to me, and I'm sure we'll get into it later on in the show. But I don't have a tremendous amount of faith that what Kyle was selling in that interview wasn't just some gamesmanship. And like, hey, he's just ramping up. He'll be fine come Sunday. That very well could be the case, but everybody else's external observation is that Brock wasn't left the field, not on some protocol or anything like that. It was bothering him so much he left. I wasn't there. I can't speak to it. And ultimately, he does have 2 more days here to get better before he has to play in Green Bay, if he plays in Green Bay. I'll say this, though. Thursday is the big day. Thursday is the day you have to practice. It's not to say that you have to be out there in order to play on Sunday, but if you're the quarterback, you probably want to be out there on a Thursday because Wednesday, a lot of guys get rest days. Friday, typically a walkthrough, especially a walkthrough if you're about to get on a plane and go to Green Bay, as they will tomorrow. So Thursday is your one honest-to-God practice, and if your quarterback isn't out there, I'm not saying that that's a disqualifier in any way for Sunday, but it is concerning inherently, especially when you consider that this offense hasn't exactly been humming for the last couple of weeks. When you think about, this pass game in particular, it could use the practice, and yet they're not able to do it because Brock's shoulder isn't there. The thing that stood out to me most about that Shanahan interview, which I wasn't allowed to participate in, was when Shanahan said that he didn't think that Brock's shoulder affected him late in the game on Sunday. And I can't tell him one way or another on how he's supposed to believe about that. But Brock did airmail a 100 times out of 100 throw over the middle to Deebo Samuel on 2nd and 11. I don't know if that's his shoulder barking at him. It could have been bad footwork or a million other things. Deebo coming out of his break a little bit slow and just not having the timing right. A million things could have gone wrong. But to imply that Brock was at his best, I don't think that lines up with the tape that I've seen. And it was a little bit shocking watching that 2nd and 11 play over and over and over again, just devoid of the shoulder conversation. It was shocking to see him miss a throw that bad. So I'm not even sure what we're going to see on Sunday if Brock Purdy can indeed play, because I'd have to imagine that an injury to your throwing shoulder is going to affect how you throw the football. And that's a pretty significant thing.
When do you think he got hurt? Was it the dive where the guy fell on him at the end, or was it?
I wish I would have taken the time to do the forensic files on this. It had to have been in the 4th quarter though, right? And I can't recall a sack. I think he wasn't sacked at all in that game.
I was thinking of earlier in the game when he kind of ran and dove, and then somebody shot from his left-hand side and kind of rolled over his rib cage on the left. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me seemed like the hardest hit. Somebody also showed me a video of his arm kind of getting knocked a little bit when he threw, which obviously the elbow is very much of a concern, but it doesn't sound like it was an elbow injury. I don't know. I mean, if you were a betting man, would you wager that he plays or sits on Sunday?
I'd say it's more likely that he plays, right? Like if Trent Williams played last week, then I think Brock Purdy plays on Sunday. But I'm not sure, and it will always be the advantageous play when your other option is Brandon Allen or Josh Dobbs. So, yeah, he's going to play. But I don't know if he's going to look like last year's Brock Purdy, which is frankly the kind of player that needs to show up on Sunday. It's of concern.
Run the ball. I mean, run the ball. I mean, my God, the last week, Bears ran for 5.3 a carry, and they ran it like 35 times. Run the ball, hope you get a turnover, try to take care of the ball. If you're +1 and you run it 35 times, you got a shot. Okay, if Purdy can't go, I would think he's going to go as well. I mean, there's season on the line.
Yeah.
You got the entire offseason to rest. If it comes down to Purdy sits, who do you think? I mean, I think we both know that Shanahan's going with Brandon Allen.
With Allen. In which case,
Because
why is Dobbs on the team?
He's
Like-
put him over Dobbs the entire year.
Then why do you have him?
What,
You know,
I mean,
let him be
who
free.
Who do you think's better?
I think that that's tricky because Allen can go in there and very poorly execute Kyle Shanahan's offense, right? He can go out there, and if the reason I think he was around is if Brock Purdy goes to the tent for a series or two, you put in Brandon Allen, and he's not going to lose the game for you, right? You put him in there, he'll hand it off 2 times, and if it's a 3rd and long, he won't throw it to the other team. So that's why Brandon Allen's there. He's a good steward for the offense, but he ain't going to win you anything. The reason Josh Dobbs is here, ostensibly, is that he has game-breaking ability. Got a ability to throw the deep ball, ability to run. He's a chaos machine. If I had an entire week where I believed, and we won't know until Sunday if this is what the Niners believe currently, but if I had an entire week where I believed that Brock Purdy wasn't going to play, I would gear my team up to play with Josh Dobbs because he has the ability to go out there and win you a game. He might also lose the game by 40, right? He could be that bad. It's the Jameis Winston effect. Sometimes it's incredible and fun and wow, what a swashbuckler. And sometimes it's the worst thing you've ever seen. But Brandon Allen isn't going to do anything for you. He's legitimately a dude in the sense that he's not going to win you anything. He'll probably not lose you anything. You know that's what Kyle's going to go with, and it is just going to be soul-crushingly boring because that style of quarterback will not work with the current skill position players this team has. The idea is, oh, well, we have all this talent. Just have someone go out there and not screw this up. The problem is that talent doesn't look like what it looked like last year. You're saying, oh, just get the ball to Christian McCaffrey. So what? He can get tackled 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage? Oh, just get the ball to Deebo Samuel. 1, easier said than done. And 2, when you hand it off, that's going nowhere. Jawan Jennings with his minimal separation, you need some anticipation on those throws. You need to have a little bit of a Brock Purdy energy to you. I mean, George Kittle, I guess he should be easy enough to get the ball to. He's outstanding. But outside of that, what are we talking about? Like, he's not taking over an elite offense. He's taking over a middling offense, which with him at the helm would drop down to a bad offense, at least in my opinion.
I'd go with Allen. I think Shanahan's going with Allen. I'd go with Allen as well. I just think Allen looked way better in the preseason. I mean, which Bill Murray movie was it where they kept chanting, "It just doesn't matter"? Was that Meatballs or was that Stripes?
I don't remember either one.
But either
it
way,
wasn't Stripes. It wasn't Stripes, so it must have been Meatballs.
Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. That's what I would say about Allen or Dobbs. It just doesn't matter. I'll take Allen because I think he's a little bit more trustworthy. I thought he looked a little better in the preseason.
What are you trusting him for, though? Like, what's the point of trust? Give me someone who can win you the game. Do you honestly believe that Brandon Allen can win you the game?
I don't think either guy can win the game. I really don't. I'm not even 100% sure that Purdy can win this game. This is going to be a tough game to win.
Yeah.
And the reason it's going to be a tough game to win is the next story, which is that Trent Williams and Nick Bosa are both likely to be out in this game. Bosa's got an oblique and, ribs or whatever else he's got, an ankle, hip. Hip.
It was hip. It was hip, and then it became the opposite oblique. He called it overcompensation. Classic.
Hip and an oblique. And then Trent Williams has got an ankle, and he had the Toradol shot last week. And then, it wore off and he was in a ton of pain, like is the typical. I don't think Trent Williams is going to go at left tackle. I think it's going to be Jalen Moore. And I don't think Bosa is going to go opposite Floyd. I think it's going to wind up being Yatir Gross-Matos. I don't think they're going to have Williams or Bosa. Those are the 2 best players on the team.
Yeah. And of the 3 players that you cannot afford to lose, like even one of them you can't afford to lose, the Niners legitimately have a shot of missing all 3 of them. You can't go in without your starting quarterback. That goes without saying. Even for teams with a good backup, you need your starter. You can't go in without your number 1 pass rusher in the case of every team, but especially the 49ers team with no defensive line depth whatsoever. And then you can't go in without your starting left tackle on most every team, but especially on a 49ers team where now Dominic Pooney is your best offensive lineman. And we all love Dominic Pooney, but like that's a little bit of a difference between him and Trent Williams. Trent Williams holds this thing up to be average. Somehow one man can hold this entire offensive line up as average. Without him, a bottom 10, bottom 5 unit in the league overall. So, yeah, absolutely brutal. And the one that stands out most is Bosa, because the thing that you absolutely must positively have to do against Jordan Love and the Packers is get pressure on him. You cannot let him feel comfortable in the pocket. I know that applies to the vast majority of quarterbacks, but for him, it is a glaring difference between when he is pressured and when he has a clean pocket. There's a reason that Matt LaFleur around Thanksgiving last year decided we're going max protect for the rest of the season. We are going to just make sure that this guy has a clean pocket. We will live with 2 or 3 man routes as opposed to our normal offense, just so long as this guy and his arm talent has a clean pocket to throw from. He's going to get a clean pocket to throw from, and they won't even have to have max protect because Yetur Gross-Matos is legitimately the second best pass rusher on this team. And I include Floyd, and I include Beal, and I include Okwanu. Like, what are we doing here? It is dire times on the defensive line, and without Nick Bosa, man, it's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened when Bosa was out last week. I mean, they
all
had
20
nothing.
points.
They had absolutely nothing. They were giving up 3 yards a play. Then they went to giving up 6 yards a play.
Yeah.
All right, let's share the screen on this one. This is T.O. before we do our better lineup.
I heard this, yeah.
T.O. stopped by on the morning roast with Shasky and Bonte.
He's right now is a focal point.
Shasky and Bonte. And here's what T.O. had to say, and then we'll talk about it. Here's T.O. on 95.7 The Game.
He's right now is a focal point. Obviously, they got Kittles. Again, he's been battling injuries here and there. Deebo is not really playing up to Deebo standards. Deebo is seems like he's more focused on his pregame attire than he is actually the game. So again, if we can shift that focus, maybe that can energize and create some more production, from an offensive standpoint. I'm just kind of tongue in cheek with that, but again, Juwan Jennings, like I said, to your point, dynamic player. Like I said, the only thing I think he lacks is, like I said, is that game-changing ability. Yeah, he's a playmaker, go up, make plays, but he can only do so much. He needs somebody else to complement what he's doing from an offensive standpoint. Like I said, the running game has to come along the way as well. So I'm sure the more games that Christian gets back on the field, he can get back in there and get back to himself, then you'll probably see that offensive firepower that everybody's expecting as the season wears on. He's right now.
What do you think? What do you think of T.O.'s comments? To me, it's like, you got to be kidding me.
That's rich, right?
You put a Sharpie in your sock anticipating a touchdown dance where you would have a prop.
But here's the difference. Difference. He actually scored the damn touchdown.
Yeah, but now you're going to sit there and question Deebo's, motivation and this and that. I think Deebo's not great, and Deebo's backslid, and he's not having a great year, but it's not about motivation. And it's definitely not about his pregame fit or what he's wearing. I mean, that's just stupid talk.
He's been on that nonsense forever. And listen, he's got to say something. And it's T.O. It's rich that T.O. is going in on someone's quote unquote lack of focus. I don't question Deebo's focus at all. Even he's got the podcast. Clearly he doesn't care that much about it because it's unlistenable. And so I know that Deebo mentally is there for the game. I can visually see that he's mentally there. I see him correcting players where they need to line up and stuff. He knows this stuff. He knows the offense. His body just doesn't cooperate. It's done. It's over for the Deebo Samuel that we once knew. And the drop-off is precipitous. It is tough to watch because Deebo Samuel, we talk about, Zuka here saying he's not a wide back anymore. If he ain't a wide back, I don't know what he is, because as a wide receiver, he doesn't separate and you can just jam him. I once saw Antoine Griezmann, the soccer player, jam him up. Like, Antoine Griezmann weighs 140 pounds. It is jarring. And I honestly would recommend anybody who hasn't focused in on this yet on Sunday, just watch Deebo at the line of scrimmage and imagine how the hell you're supposed to get that guy the ball. So what do? They hand it off to him, and you can see how that goes. There's no juice left in the legs. He was here for a good time, not for a long time, and ultimately, yeah, this is the drop-off. The issue is, B. Lauren, no one's trading with Deebo. Also, you can't post June 1 designated trade. You can cut him post June 1, but then you have a $10 million cap hit, not just for this year, but for next year. So, yeah.
I don't know if you saw my video today on this. Did you see my video on Deebo today?
I've been very busy, Larry. I apologize. I did not.
That's all right. It's all right. It's all right. But I did a video on it. And, I started thinking about this. And I'm like, what is the issue here? What is going on? What are we actually seeing? Because Deebo looks bad. I mean, he just doesn't, as you said, he can't turn the corner as a runner. He doesn't separate against man coverage.
Nope.
He doesn't make big plays for the most part anymore. And then, I started thinking about it and I'm like, really there's two kinds of runners in the NFL. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about a receiver or a running back. There's really two kinds of open field runners. The guys who have great speed and quickness and try to run around you, and the guys who have great power who try to run through you.
Mm-hmm.
And Deebo runs through you. Deebo's not a runner away from you. He doesn't run around you. He runs through you. He's a wide back. And I just started thinking about who are the power backs of our time. And I started looking them up. And sure enough, I knew what I was going to find. And it's exactly what I thought I was going to find. Jerome Bettis, big time power back, 8,000-yard seasons. He was great. But none of them came after the age of 29. Larry Johnson, Penn State running back, who was with Kansas City. He had 37 touchdowns in his third and fourth years combined, which is a ton.
He almost had 2,000 yards one year.
Yeah, 2,000-yard seasons, but he was done at the age of 27.
Yeah.
Earl Campbell had 5,000-yard seasons, but he had no 1,000-yard seasons after the age of 28.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch has had 6,000-yard seasons, but none since the age of 28.
Mm-hmm.
Ironhead Hayward was done at 29. Christian Okoye was done at 30.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Allstott, 6-time Pro Bowler, done at 28. Jim Brown, 7-time 1,000-yard rusher, done at 29. So there are exceptions,
That's the greatest to ever do it right there. Done at 29.
I mean, John Riggins lasted a long time. There's a couple others. Walter Payton was amazing late.
Yeah.
There's a couple others. But then I was even looking at, is there any receiver that I can think of that's like kind of like Deebo? The only one I could think of that kind of reminded me of Deebo was David Boston, who played at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He had a couple 1,000-yard seasons, but he only had a 6-year career in the NFL.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. Deebo is 28, and he has been used a lot, and he's been used as a runner, and he has, a little bit of a propensity to put on a few extra pounds. And he's just he's never been a burner per se.
No.
And it's just like, you know what? This is what happens to power players. They get to 27, 28, 29, and they're done. And if you wind up paying them significant dollars beyond that point, shame on you. You blew that.
And the Niners were trying to trade Deebo this past offseason, understanding that the end of the line was nearing, and they couldn't get what they wanted. And yet, when Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams needed a new contract, they had run out of people to restructure in order to free up some space to keep that cap money free for Brock Purdy that they could roll it over. So who did they extend? Deebo Samuel. And now they're going to have to eat $10 million each of the next 2 years. I mean, that's not an insignificant number. It's actually to the point where you're only paying them like 16, 17 million. So is the difference of 6 or 7 million worth the, having to find someone to fill the roster spot? Probably not. You probably keep Deebo around for another year just because of this deal that you just made with them. So that was bad business. That was short-sighted. And ultimately, the Niners have found themselves in this situation with a couple of players, right? McCaffrey would be a good example, even though he's a more graceful runner, but he's a running back. And we've had that conversation ad nauseum about the long-term viability of running backs. but they gave him a brand new contract. I guess they didn't even check the Achilles before they did it. And then George Kittle keeps getting re-upped and re-upped and re-upped. That guy plays like a human wrecking ball. And I know that some tight ends have lasted a long time, but you've seen the drop-off with Travis Kelce this year. I think that it is more exceptional than not to play into your deep 30s as a tight end, especially a physical tight end. Kittle has an ailment on every level of his body, and he has for the last 5 years. And it takes a lot to keep him out, but these hamstring injuries in week 3 and then this past week kept him out. That's telling. Trent Williams, 36 years old, didn't look right in the Super Bowl. What do they do? And listen, I'll be the first one to admit, I said give him whatever he wants. That's not looking so hot right now because he took a long time to round into form, if he ever did. And now he's got this bone bruise in his ankle. And that's not just something that goes away. You can't just shoot that up consistently, right? This is not a soft tissue thing where as long as I don't feel it, it's going to be okay. That is bone on bone. That's a bone bruise. That thing needs to fully rest and got to rest for more than a week to get that thing right. So just shooting it up, you're making it worse. You're exacerbating the problem. So this is the issue when you have one of the oldest teams in the NFL coming into the season. And ultimately, the mileage on each of these cars. Some cars last for 300,000 miles, right? Because they're well maintained and sometimes they're just special cars, right? And you don't know which one you're getting. But there are some cars that you can drive for 60,000 miles. But if you're driving them hard as hell, I think back to the cars I had in Chicago, and it's like, dude, you're going 100 degrees in the summer, 0 degrees in the winter. You are driving this thing hard, city miles, tough miles. If you get 80,000 on that thing before it chokes out, you won because you're riding it that hard. If you live in Southern California, you can drive your Lexus around in perpetuity because there's nothing to take it out. The elements aren't hurting it. The Niners have a lot of players who have been in now 70 games over the last 3-4 years, 70 games since 2021. And a lot of those games are tough, mean, slobber knocker, punch you in the mouth games in December, in January, and even in February. Those are some hard miles. And ultimately, it doesn't matter if the odometer might read a little bit lower than you thought it should. Those are hard fucking miles. And the time's up. The time's up on that engine. The car's getting totaled in real time. The problem is the Niners have a much longer lease than they initially expected, and that's their fault.
Do you used to get your cars dipped in Chicago? I know there's a lot of talk about when you live in a snow culture that you should get your car dipped in like this salt solution or salt so your car doesn't rust immediately. I've heard that people who buy cars in snow conditions get like the bottom of their car dipped in some salt preserve. Something. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of that. I'm pretty sure that's a car dealership trick.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's one of those things where they're like, oh, we'll give you the salt guard. And that's like not really a thing, but they charge you. It's like a scam. That was my understanding.
Okay.
We never did that. Legit. And honestly, with cars being mostly plastic now these days, I'm not sure it'd be worth it anymore, but
let's hit some supers and then we'll go to our better lineup. Eamon report says, hello, top 10 draft pick. Kyle can get ready to golf soon and clear his head in January. Wow.
We can all.
KR says it just doesn't matter. Was from Meatballs. Thank you.
Good shout.
Appreciate that. Blood Moon says Anquan Boldin was a powerful wide receiver, or is my memory bad? He was a slow 40 wide receiver who had a very good career.
Wonderful player.
The Jedi says, I think Lynch has to go. The draft pick misses. Bill is due. Kyle needs a GM who has full roster and draft control. I really like John Lynch, but they can't miss going forward the way they missed in the first round up to this point, or he
gets another year. Let's be clear about this. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan would have already been fired if Brock Purdy wasn't the quarterback of this team.
And we're going to talk more about that. It's because there's a lot of people that don't want Brock to be the quarterback long term. We'll talk about that coming up. Okay. All right, but first, it is time for this live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krueger Show. Yes, Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We've won 5 times already this year. What do? You download the app below. You make sure you use the promo code Niners to get that first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does is automatically entered to win a free signed Fred Warner jersey. We will announce the winner at the end of November. All right, let's go to the better lineup, and let's take a look at Niners Packers.
Give me Anthony Davis over rebounds.
Yeah. Let's take a look at
Jalen Struggs under assists.
You're right. Let's go to Niners Packers, and let's take a look at the props.
Okay, Christian McCaffrey rushing yards. Can I see that, Kev?
Christian McCaffrey rushing yards. You have
Under.
75.5.
Down.
You like under. Why?
Because if Trent Williams ain't there, they can't run the ball. I understand that Kittle coming back will help, but ultimately, I think that with the way that these receivers are operating right now, Green Bay can sell out against the run, and I see nothing in those legs for Christian McCaffrey right now.
Here's the problem with this. It doesn't take into account yards per carry. What if there's no Brock Purdy? Then all of a sudden you've got a whole lot of carries, a run-dominant scheme. So
I'm not sure.
You
I'm not
could
sure
run the
it'd be
ball
75
poorly.
and a half.
I mean, give you the look at some of the teams that have run against them. Some of the teams have run a lot and just not run effectively.
Yeah.
What if the Niners run 35 times and he gets 80 yards? You know, I could see it.
If you have a game in which Brock Purdy's not the quarterback and you're running it 35 times, the only way that Christian McCaffrey is getting 30, 33 of those rushes is if you're in the game. And if Brock Purdy's not the quarterback and Nick Bosa is not playing defensive end and Trent Williams isn't on the offensive line and Deebo Samuel still looks slow, I have a very hard time believing that in the second half of that game that Kyle Shanahan's going to be like, you know what? Let's keep Christian McCaffrey out there. He might do it, but I have a hard time believing it or justifying it. I'm taking under. You could disagree, Larry. It's your show.
No, let's go.
Let's go.
We'll go less than 75 and a half. So we'll go less than 75 and a half there. What else? Let's
Kittle
stay away from Brock.
Yards.
What's that?
Kittle receiving yards?
For who?
Kittle.
Let's take a look at Kittle. 46 and a half receiving yards.
I thought that was 40.
Yeah, but I still like that over.
I kind of like it. Oh,
you don't like him to get 47 receiving yards?
That's right on the number. Let's take a look at this Mr. Jordan Love fella.
Okay. It's got 4 categories. Jordan Love, you can go passing touchdowns more. You can go interceptions more. You can go longest pass, 37 and a half. And
I like longest pass.
Passing yards, 240. Niners don't give up a lot of explosives, though.
Yeah, but they might have to sell out a little bit more in this game because they don't have the pass rush, right? Be a lot of
thinking a 38-yard pass?
Yeah, especially it might not have to go 36 yards in the air, but you get Wicks in open space. He makes one man miss. It's done.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me on that is just the 49ers, I could see a 38-yard pass or penalty, but they wrap up some of these guys on penalties.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. We'll go 38. We'll go 38 longest pass. We'll go over 37 and a half. Let's take a look at, give me Christian Watson. Do they have Christian Watson in there?
Oh, I like where your head's at.
Christian Watson is coming off a 150-yard day, and he's at 43 and a half receiving yards. That's a lock. He's going over. He is the hot name right now for them. He's the guy they're looking for. I think Christian Watson could do that.
We can't stack them.
Well, we can't have both?
Guess not. Your call there.
Give me Christian Watson over 43 and a half, and we'll pick another one.
Okay.
What else do you like? Is there another?
What do we have on Jennings receptions?
Let's go Jennings. You have receiving yards 54 and a half. That's kind of high. And longest catch 20 and a half. Those are not great.
It's too dangerous with Brock. Yeah. How about some Moody? Just get weird with it.
What's Jake? What has Jake got?
6.5 kicking points. What do you think on that, Lair? 6.5 kicking points.
I like it. Why? Because the Niners stall out, so they're probably going to kick a field goal. You get one field goal, and all you need then
Is one more field goal and touchdown.
Or I was going to say, if you get 2 field goals and 1 touchdown, you're set.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I'm willing to
2
ride
field
it.
goals. Yeah, let's go more than 6.5.
An aggressive play, let's be fair, but I like it.
All right, let's do it right there. That's our. No, we don't. We're not going Brock.
We could just take unders on Brock on the premise he might not play. I'm
afraid that if he doesn't play, we may not get paid out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're through. If we go 3 for 3, no, we'll go with those 3.
Yeah.
Those 3, and let's wager. What are we going to wager? We've submitted our entry.
$72,000. What was the payoff there, Kev?
I can't see it there. What do you say? Oh, it's 5 times 5, so it's 5 to 1.
Okay.
So we put $10, 5 to 1. I like it. McCaffrey, less than 76 rushing yards.
Yep.
Christian Watson more than 43 receiving yards, and Jake Moody 6.5 kicking points. But I like that because I think Jake's probably got a couple field goals in him and probably a couple extra points. That'd be my guess. Yep. If I was guessing, I'd say he's going to have 8 points. 8 points of kicking points for Jake Moody.
Okay, I love it.
All right, there we go. We're in. Thanks to Better for being the proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's go to Richard Sherman.
Oh, boy.
Richard Sherman weighed in on the 49ers. And he's nervous.
Does he talk about any other team? Doesn't seem like he ever does.
Really very 49ers centric.
Yeah.
Considering he played for
like the Larry Krueger of the national media.
Yeah, he's very 49er centric. I'm definitely 49er centric as well. All right, here we go. Here is Dick Sherman on the podcast. His podcast.
He's got the Greg Papa hat going. Changes
there you
it
go.
by
With
team.
the flat. I like the other guys fold a little bit better, but here you go.
Yeah.
Little Richard Sherman.
How high is your panic meter with this team right now?
Mitchell, my panic meter has been high since the Arizona Cardinals lost. So it can't go any higher. It's been high. I've been panicked. I've been concerned. I've lost sleep. I think my hair was falling out at times. Like stress. Because I don't know the answers. Usually I watch the tape and it's clear and you're like, hey, pass rushing, or hey, push the ball down the field, or turnovers, or red zone. And right now you're watching these games and you're like, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. It's like a Thanksgiving plate. Like you got a little bit of everything. It's a taste of everything, a helping of all these mistakes that are leading to a plate full of disappointment. And that's the part that as a fan of the organization and program, I just watch and I'm like, man, this is such a talented team. And I know how it feels to have the fatigue of losing a Super Bowl. Like it sucks. And no matter how much you try to tell yourself and you're mentally strong and you're like, there's no fatigue, it gets you. And to lose one, some of the guys have lost 2. They've lost NFC championships. Like that weighs on you if you care enough. And it weighs on your emotion, and the emotions weigh on your spirit, Mitchell, and it just sits on you. And so I thought last year had to be the year. I thought it had to be the year. When they got there, they had the Kansas City Chiefs where they wanted them. I thought it had to be the year. And as this year has progressed, you've seen the holdouts, and then the holdouts end, and then you see the injuries, and the injuries just keep mounting. I mean, Brandon Ayuk has the season-ending injury, Devon Hargrave season-ending injury, and it's football, and you have these things happen when you just don't have the luck. The luck isn't with you in that season, so you don't have the injury luck, and then the ball's not necessarily bouncing your way. You're not getting the calls that you used to get, or the bounces, or the turnovers, or and unfortunately they're giving up points late in ball games on defense. All
right, that's enough.
Yeah, someone needs to reset Richard Sherman. He's stalling out there.
Well, I mean, first of all, do you really believe he's losing sleep? Do you really believe that he's that upset, or is he acting? Is Is he acting for the podcast, or is he really losing his hair, losing sleep, stressing out? I don't see him. I believe he's following it. I believe he'd love to see them win, but I don't think he's losing sleep.
I mean, I go on with you. I go on KMBR. I write this column. I think a lot of people would say that just given my general temperament towards this team, that I'm invested. I'm emotional about it. I'm yelling about this football team. I haven't lost an ounce of sleep. not one bit. No one should be losing sleep over this team. What have they done at any point to convince you that this was in fact the year? Like, at some point, you have to show me that you are that kind of team. You can say it all you want. I'm sure the Jaguars were telling themselves in the preseason, we got a shot this year. We can be that team. And then reality strikes, and now no one's saying that anymore. What have we seen from these San Francisco 49ers that gives you the indication that they're actually a good football team? I'm not even going to put Super Bowl contender. What makes you watch them and say, that's a damn good football team? Their best win of the season might have been against the Jets. Like, this is not, when you watch the All-22, when you watch the game live, nothing about this team screams contender, much less favorite. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that year to year, even though most of the names remain the same, those are entirely different entities in the NFL. That's what makes going back to back so damn hard. That's what makes this Chiefs team such a peculiarity. It doesn't happen. The Patriots did it once. The Chiefs just did it. It doesn't get done. It's not a thing. And the Niners just simply are riding on the reputation of last year. And this is something we noted in training camp. They had an arrogance to them. They had an entitlement to them. There was this just internal belief around that team that, we're dicking around in practice and there's not a lot of juice, but we'll figure it out. We're really, really good. No, they're not. We're 12 weeks into the season, and I can't point to you one game that says Super Bowl contender. I can't even, outside of one quarter against Dallas, when have they felt dominant? It's just not that good. They're an average football team, and like an average football team, they're fighting to make the playoffs in an NFC West that, by the way, they're in the bottom of right now. So if Richard Sherman's losing sleep over that, I'd recommend that he do some self-evaluation, much like the 49ers. Like, what have you seen that bothers you that this team isn't reaching their ceiling? You treat them like a new operation, and they came in, and they have not proven jack squat going into week 12. They need to drop this act of we can get back to the Super Bowl and start dealing with the reality, which is let's just make the playoffs and maybe we get lucky from there. Maybe that's where the luck lies.
I mean, all these great players are not great. I mean,
totally.
Trent Williams has regressed. Nick Bosa has regressed. Christian McCaffrey has regressed.
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk is out, but he had regressed. Deebo Samuel has regressed. It's a bunch of guys it's a bunch of big names, but they're not. Right. They don't have big game. No. They really don't. And it shows. So
the two big game players on this team are Kittle and Jennings.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to sit there and talk about big names. I mean, come on. It's week 12. I mean, at this point, we know what it is. Nick Sorensen.
Yeah.
I asked him today about the Niners' fourth quarter struggles. Mm-hmm. And, I don't even know what to say about it, really. It's like Nick doesn't want to address it. It's like I feel for the guy sometimes, and then other times I don't. But
it is his job, So
yeah, it's his job. He's
only so much sympathy that you can give.
Right. He's supposed to be, he's supposed to be better at it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do I have Nick? I don't think I have it here. It's supposed to be on Kev's Twitter. Oh, let's see.
Come on, Kev.
Wait a second. Here it is. I was on Coach Yak's Twitter. So here it is. This is Sorensen from earlier today. Let's see. Wait a second. Here's the one. Okay, yeah, here we go. Tell me if you think he's answering my question here or if he's dodging. Okay. He does a lot of dodging.
I don't see anything up here, Lair, if I'm being honest.
A second. Here we go. Okay.
There we go.
I asked him about the Niners defense in the fourth quarter. 49ers are they're number 4 in the NFL in defense in the first quarter.
Mhm.
If you looked at their defense in the first quarter, and you extrapolated out for the full game, they'd be on pace to allow 14 points.
Yeah.
So that's the number 1 defense in football. So in the first quarter, the 49ers have the equivalent of the number 1 defense in football. They give up 8.8 points in the fourth quarter. It's equivalent to giving up over 35 a game. So somehow they go from a defense in the first quarter that gives up 14 a game to a defense in the fourth quarter that gives up 35 a game. And here I asked Sorensen about it. You tell me if he answers the question.
At the beginning of games, your defense is starting really fast. I think you're 4th in the league in points allowed in the first quarter. But in the fourth quarter, you're 28th in the league. What is that about fatigue? Is it about, I mean, it's a lot of games at this point, so start to paint a picture. What's the reason for the fourth quarter?
I guess just got to evaluate it all. I mean, I don't think it's one thing. I mean, I look at myself first. So I think I've just continually tried to tap into that and what exactly it is. I think we've been beating it up and talking about it over and over again. I just think we need to coach it better and execute better and just finish better as a team.
At the beginning of games, your defense is starting.
I mean, come on.
Is that an answer?
No.
I don't know if that's an answer.
That's
So
a canned response from Chat GPT. That's what that is.
Well, let me throw it to you then. The
Yeah.
49ers are, playing really good defense in the first quarter. And in the fourth quarter, they're playing really bad defense.
Yeah.
Why? Give me the reason. Why are they so good at the beginning of games and so bad as the game progresses? Is he not making adjustments? Are they too thin? Are they fatigued? Do they not have the right pieces? I mean, what is going on with the Niner defense? How could they be so good in the first quarter and so bad in the fourth?
It comes down to pass rush. This team is predicated on having a pass rush that pressures quarterbacks. And when the game is early and Nick Bosa is fresh, they actually get after the quarterback. And they have really good coverage on the back end, and that all syncs up because you have just guys who are getting after it, splitting gaps, getting after the quarterback. They got juice in the first quarter, and it's because their best players are at their best in that moment. They got the scheme in, they're ready to go, they're clear-minded, they attack, and on the back end, if you can escape, there's not a lot of room to throw it around. As the game progresses, that defensive line gets more and more tired because you're now rotating in a bunch of randos on at defensive tackle. I mean, I know that a lot of people love Evan Anderson. He's a body. You're talking Kalia Davis. He's not bringing any juice. You're not rotating in guys at defensive tackle that are bringing you anything in the run game or the pass game. And on the outside, you're bringing in Robert Beal and Sam Aquanu. And I like Sam Aquanu as somebody who can be a strong side defensive end and set the edge every now and again. Like, I think he's a competent football player, but you're not getting the quarterback with him. And Beal hasn't done a damn thing in the NFL. So when you already have Floyd, who now is wearing down because he's got wear and tear on that body, which, I mean, his entire season has been defined by talking to the trainer. That's all I ever see him do, talk to the trainer. You have that. You have Yetur Gross-Matos going inside, outside early. And now later in the game, you need him on the outside, and he's got nothing left for you because he's been playing defensive tackle, and he's not a defensive tackle. You got Bosa getting triple teamed for 3 straight quarters and having to stay on the field more often than he used to because there is nobody to replace him. Your pass rush goes to shit, and also your secondary is going to get tired as the game progresses. Mistakes are going to be made. That's natural. That one is excusable. But when you are in situations where the other team is passing the ball a lot and you don't have the ability, because you play a lot of soft zone coverage, you don't have the ability to force the quarterback into quick decisions or bad decisions when you can't bring him to the ground, he will carve you up. It doesn't matter if it's Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. It does not matter who it is. You should be so lucky as to get a Geno Smith or a Baker Mayfield on that day. You don't have the pass rush. The hallmark of this team when they were at their best, maybe with the exception of last year when they did go to the Super Bowl, and this wasn't the case, was that they not just had a great defensive starting line, but they also had a backup line that I think 10 or 12 teams in the NFL would gladly take as their number one. And you could rotate those guys in, and you can keep your dudes fresh, and you could sick them like dogs at any given moment because they were always as fresh as they could possibly be. And meanwhile, you're seeing Nick Bosa coming back from halftime, and within a series, he's cashed. Because, again, you can only ask one guy to do so much. You say that Nick Bosa has slid. I think that in terms of output, it's inarguable. I don't think he's any worse of a player. I think he's in a much worse situation. And it's difficult for him to get the opportunities that he used to be able to get a lot easier because he had better players around him and he was fresher. He had better players behind him. So I would have to chalk it all up to the pass rush. And ultimately, Sorensen, because he's a secondaries coach, right? Safety secondaries coach, he's not going to default to bringing more pressure because that puts more difficulty on the secondary. And ultimately, the secondary is really good. And maybe he should, but he doesn't lean that way. And it's the same thing Steve Wilkes did. He didn't want to put his secondary in a compromised position. And you have a defense that was predicated in its best days under Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryan as 4 guys, hand in the dirt, let's go. And we're going to rotate 8, 9, 10 guys into that spot. And so you have now secondary coaches calling those defenses with Chris Kuceric's defensive lines. They're not going to fight that. They're not going to say, actually, we need to start bringing more pressure because they want to make sure that their the guys in the secondary look good. Those are the guys they care about. So it is a bad situation, and it is going to look really, really ugly on Sunday because now you don't even have Bosa. And Bosa was making anything that was happening for this defensive line, Bosa was making happen. They scored 20 points on the 49ers on Sunday. Bosa was off the field for every single one of them. So ultimately,
I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated by this situation because it's just like,
how do you not see it coming?
Well,
I mean, not know.
Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person that was watching what the fuck's going on here. It's like all these people were talking endlessly at the trade deadline about, well, they really need a defensive tackle. And I'm like, no, they don't. They need a defensive end. They have lots of defensive tackles. They don't have anybody at defensive end. Oh, no, they need a defensive tackle. They traded for Khalil Davis. He has not been able to play. He's not even been up and active one time since the trade. He doesn't play. He's a total non-factor. And yet they just signed Jonathan Garvin off the street. And I bet you anything they put him up on Saturday and play him on Sunday. And it's like, dude, you're going to sign Jonathan Garvin off the street and play him on a Sunday when you had absolutely no defensive end depth to speak of. Did you go and get any defensive end help at the trade deadline? No. You talked up defensive tackle. You went and traded for a defensive tackle. You have Khalil Davis, Evan Anderson, Kevin Givens. You're playing.
Do you have Kevin Givens? When was the last time Kevin Givens played?
But I mean, you still have him. He's on your team. I mean, you don't have any defensive ends. You needed a defensive end in the worst way. And instead, you add a defensive tackle who is not even playing. You traded for a guy who has yet to even play, and you badly needed a defensive end, and now you're going to be going with Jonathan Garvin on your active roster on Sunday in Green Bay because you have nothing else. And it's like, dude, I'd love to say I didn't see this coming, but I did see this coming. I was screaming and yelling, get yourself a defensive end. Everybody's like, no, they need a tackle. Why? Because they said they did?
No. They never admitted that they needed a tackle. They need a defensive tackle because I haven't even brought up the fact that they can't stop the damn run. And that all of their defensive tackles are just gap-splitting bodies, none of which can seem to split any gaps. They just get moved over.
But the guy they got is the same thing.
That was a terrible trade. They gave up a 7th-round pick in 2026. They told you everything that you needed to know about how much they valued him. The Houston Texans, who don't exactly have a ton of bodies at defensive tackle, are like, we were going to cut this guy. You want him for something? Yeah, throw me a penny. This is a $1 transaction. This was a move to placate people who don't watch football, who cover football. That's what that move was made, so that people would be like, well, they got a defensive tackle. But you turn on the tape of Khalil Davis and you go,
play.
Well, now he doesn't play, but you even watched him in Houston. You go, this guy's not good. No wonder Houston was trying to get rid of him. So I would have loved to have seen you're bad in both the run and the pass. Okay, which one is cheaper to get? Because you need to solidify one of them. And in my opinion, it would have been cheaper and more prudent to get somebody to play next to Malik Collins who could actually plug a fucking gap, as opposed to going out here and trying to do the same thing you did last year with Randy Gregory and Chase Young in trying to get a defensive end who is apparently expendable, as if those are easy enough to find, and cheap, so that they'll come in and give you something.
They need to get a defensive end now. I mean, why not go sign Jason Pierre-Paul? And what is Jonathan Garvin doing for you? I don't get that at all. Hey, let's find a guy that we kind of like, and we'll just bring him in. And when we need an extra guy, we'll keep bringing this guy in. And it's like, can he play? How about that? Can we start there? Can he play?
Well,
do you need him? And it's like they badly need a defensive end, but Garvin can't play. I mean, it's like it's
there's a reason he was on the street, and there's a reason that you cut him so many times. But the Niners, this is a Kyle issue. The Niners are obsessed with not having to teach somebody the system. Right? Why did they go out and get Khalil Davis? Well, because he's a plug and play. He already knows the system. We don't have to teach him anything.
Nobody wants to coach anybody. I mean, come on.
No, legitimately, no. Like, I mean this. Why didn't they go out and get a wide receiver at the deadline? I heard it straight from a damn good source. Kyle doesn't want to have to teach somebody how to play wide receiver in his system on the fly. It's like, dude, I get that it's hard. I understand. That is a fair concern to have. You know what's more concerning? Not having good enough players.
Yeah, being super slow.
Fucking job.
Here's Sorensen. Here's another, since we're emptying the Sorensen clip.
Yeah.
He's not going to have Bosa, and it doesn't seem like it bothers him.
Yeah.
Have Nick Bosa on the field Sunday. I mean, do you feel like you have the type of front four without him that can generate enough pressure where you don't have to manufacture more than you would otherwise?
I think you never want to not have one of the best players in the NFL. I mean, I love the guys that we have, and you're always prepared for any situation.
That was the entirety of the answer. No, you're not. You're not prepared for any situation.
Well,
I mean,
all the evidence points in the opposite direction.
Is he going to be saying that at the end of the fourth quarter? I love the guys I have. Something tells me he's not going to be saying that in the fourth quarter.
I have a feeling like the fourth quarter won't really matter. I have a feeling like that conversation might be had at halftime.
It just doesn't matter.
It
doesn't matter.
I don't quite get what it is. What's Brandon Staley doing for this team right now? He was brought in to supposed to be a mastermind and creative force, and they're just sort of letting Sorensen do whatever he wants, and Sorensen doesn't want to do anything interesting because he's too afraid of what would happen if he gets it wrong. At least Steve Wilkes had the nuts to go out there and try some stuff every now and again.
Well, guess what? If you don't blitz in this game, it's going to be slow death. So it's going to be really interesting. You hear guys like Greg Cosell and Baldy say it, they're not overly impressed by the Niners blitz packages or their ability to know when to blitz and how to blitz and where to send guys. And it just it's interesting too. I mean, one of the comments from Cosell this week is that he doesn't think Purdy's seeing the field all that well. I thought that was kind of interesting. All right, Kyle Shanahan. Let's talk about Kyle Shanahan. Everybody seems like they're worried about Kyle Shanahan. I saw, Cam Inman talking about George Kittle and their concern for Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan looks gassed. There's no question.
Yeah.
Here's the question I would have. How long does Shanahan get to win the 6th Lombardi before Jed pulls the plug on the regime? Andy Reid got 13 years in Philly. This is the 8th year for Shanahan and Lynch. Do they get 10? Do they get 12? They get 10?
12. It's so context dependent, but like
they have 2 more years. You're saying they have 2 more years.
They have 2 more years at the minimum. Yeah. Yeah. They get.
If you own the team, how many years would you give them?
To win the 6th?
Yeah. Yeah.
13.
You give them 5 more years.
I think because of where you're at, right? Kyle's a victim of expectations that he has created for himself, right? Like the only reason that we are upset with Kyle Shanahan is because he has built a team that we are all convinced should be competing for a Super Bowl title. That in and of itself is an incredible accomplishment that can't be just dismissed. It's easy to take that for granted. I think a lot of teams would love to have that kind of entitlement towards excellence. This is a 5-5 football team. While the arrow is pointing directly down into the dirt right now, they are still very much in it. And if they were to fully actualize, which I do not believe under any circumstances is about to happen, but if they were to somehow fully actualize here, you wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs. Again, it's not going to happen, but people talk about all this talent. What if Deebo just comes out of his funk? What if Christian McCaffrey does just that rust now is gone and now he's the old Christian McCaffrey? That changes the paradigm a little bit. Not enough to win a Super Bowl, but it changes the paradigm a bit. I would have a hard time saying that Kyle Shanahan needs to get run out of town because you know what's on the other side, right? The idea is that you think so highly of yourself that, oh, well, we'll just go out and get a coach now and he'll go and get this team over the top. But if you lose Kyle Shanahan, well, now John Lynch is out with you and a lot of your front office is out with you and your coaching staff's out with you. And remember what Kyle took over? It's not as if the infrastructure was what they had in Philadelphia, where you have Howie Roseman as the GM calling the shots, building the team, and he's the one who goes and he fires Andy Reid, but he's still in charge. There's still a head honcho there. What you're doing if you get rid of Kyle Shanahan is you're burning it all to the ground. And this thing is too tall to just burn to the ground. This needs to be a controlled demolition. And honestly, it probably just needs to be more of a refurbishment than anything else. Kyle Shanahan is smart enough to figure out how to adapt to the new reality. He hasn't done it yet. He probably won't do it for the rest of this season, but he has to be smart. I have to believe that this guy, who we have called a genius without irony before, is smart enough to look at his team in the offseason and realize we overdid it. We pushed it 1 year too far. And I got to think that he's going to have a better operation going into next year, even if it's a less talented team, at least by name recognition. They have to draft well. They have to do free agency well. They can't afford to miss on anything. That's for sure. But in terms of the coaching adjustments that he hasn't made this year, I have to believe that he'll make them going into next year. So if next season looks a lot like this season, then he gets another season to show that actually he's able to pull them out. You can't get 3 of these in a row.
Okay, so let's just say he's got somewhere between 2 years and 5 years. Can we agree on that?
But then we get to a certain point where if this is 5-6 years from now or 5 years from now, and this thing has never gotten back close to the Super Bowl, it's never been built up to the level it was there, then you have to say, okay, fine, we gotta move on. Because you've probably already fired Lynch by then. You've probably already brought in a bunch of new. That's an entirely different thing. And now you feel like, okay, we have the infrastructure around that we can just bring in a new coach. But
let's talk about this, like regular folks.
Can we?
The most likely scenario this year is that they are going to lose this weekend, or if not lose this weekend, they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yes.
They're going to miss the playoffs. They're staring at a Purdy extension and an aging roster and lots of needs. They got to rebuild the offensive line, rebuild the defensive line, find new linebackers. They as much as they don't want to draft any more receivers, they're going to have to find a receiver because Deebo's old and probably cooked, and Pearsall and Cowing are rookies, and who knows what they are. And it's I kind of feel like this Niner team is a little like the Warriors, where they had the 2 timelines. You had 2 guys who are too old and guys that are too young, not enough guys in their prime. I feel like the Niners are the same thing. I mean, it's like Cowing and Pearsall are too young, and Ayuk and Kittle and Deebo and these guys might be too old. But let's just say the thing plays out. They don't go to the playoffs. And let's just say Jed says to Kyle and John, hey, look, you guys don't have for fucking ever.
Right.
Okay. So there's going to be a moment that this is going to become, the bill is going to become due on this. So some people say I should give you 2 years. Some people say I should give you 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
How about this? We'll cut it in the middle. You guys have 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. You have 3 years.
To do what? To achieve what?
To win the Super Bowl. To win the Super Bowl. To achieve the goals set out initially, which is to win the 6th Lombardi. You have 3 years.
But is that ownership's real goal, or is that what they just tell fans and the media so that you get off their ass?
I don't know. How would I know? I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't.
I don't know. I don't know what their real goal is. I mean, they could be making a ton of money. Jed just told us he was satisfied if they had lost to Detroit. So now we're supposed to believe that if they don't make the Super Bowl, he's going to get rid of the regime. He was just satisfied with losing to Detroit. But let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, we'll just assume some things. Let's assume that 2 years is too little and 5 years is too long, and that Jed says, you guys got 3 years. What does Kyle Shanahan do? There's awful lot of people that have connected Aaron Rodgers' next stop to the 49ers. If Brock Purdy, plays the way he's played this year, just kind of ordinary, and they miss the playoffs, and Jed says to them, you don't have forever, you only have 3 years. Do they stay with Purdy and try to build up around Purdy while paying him like a franchise quarterback? Or do they try to move off and find somebody else? And maybe a lot of people suggest Aaron Rodgers is not going to finish with the Jets, and that maybe he would finish with the Niners. What is going to be their plan if the way this season looks like it's going to end is the way it actually ends, and they don't make the playoffs, and Brock doesn't elevate, and he just kind of plays mediocre ball, and they don't go to the playoffs? What's Jed's reaction going to be? Do they stay with Brock and build up around Brock? Do they move off of Brock, try to trade Brock, and go after a guy like Rodgers and try to accelerate everything? I mean, Rodgers has got 16 touchdowns and 7 picks this year. He's old, but what do you think? What are they going to do if this season goes south?
There is no objective observer who could look me in the eye and say that today's Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. There's not a single one of them. That is.
He's got better numbers outside of completion percentage.
I've actually watched Aaron Rodgers play quarterback, and my God, it's brutal. It's brutal. And I watch Brock Purdy week in, week out, and I will be the first person to criticize a lot of his play, but I've never once been like, Jesus Christ, we gotta euthanize this horse, man. That's when I watch Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, we got to put him down. He's got nothing. He's got nothing.
Does he have nothing, or do the Jets have nothing?
The Jets have 2 of the best receivers in football.
But they also have kind of a bad line, don't they?
Yeah, but the issue is that Aaron Rodgers, who has made halfway decent offensive lines look great because of his ability to scramble and extend plays, like that's a big part of his game. Say what you will about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Like, they're obviously great players. They were stoic pocket passers. Brady moved around a little bit, but they stood in the pocket, stepped up, and delivered the football. They were not the most talented quarterbacks in their era. That was Rodgers. Rodgers was the guy who's running to the sidelines and ripping it across the field, and he's swashbuckling, man. He was making something out of nothing. And when he just does not have the ability to move anymore, how much of his game was his ability to create on the move? Even though he's not Lamar Jackson, his ability to move around the pocket, his ability to move out of the pocket, that's like 50% of what made Aaron Rodgers, and he can't do any of that anymore. So all he is now is a glorified Tua, where if he doesn't get the ball out of his hands in 2 seconds, he's toast. It's over. So I don't want Brock. The idea that you bring in Aaron Rodgers to make your team better is laughable to me, because one of the only reasons the Niners are scoring points is because Brock Purdy's feet have been such an asset for them this year. Do you want it to be part of the game plan? Hell no. You want it to be a cherry on top of the sundae that is your offense. But ultimately, He's scored a lot of touchdowns. He's made plays happen. He's extended drives. His ability to run and create on the run, not just for himself, but for others, has been a huge part of whatever the 49ers have on offense. So the idea that you bring in Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, is obsessed with his numbers and does nothing but protect those numbers, and he can't even do that. There would be years where he would throw 2 interceptions because he would just throw it out of bounds all the time. Right, he wanted to make sure that his touchdown interception ratio was pristine. He can't even do that anymore. He can't even protect his numbers accurately anymore. Anyone who's coming in with Aaron Rodgers needs to get off YouTube, get off Twitter, and actually watch a football game in totality from start to finish. And you're going to have to clockwork orange a Jets game this year because it is a brutal watch. It is a terrible, terrible situation they got going on. Here's the deal. Brock Purdy is the only reason that these two men have jobs. They're going to ride them all the way to the end. Whether that's right or wrong, we're going to find out. I wouldn't be opposed to franchise tagging them and playing the Kirk Cousins game and seeing that gives you some more money to work with these next couple of years and playing hardball there. But ultimately, the only reason that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have jobs after the Trey Lance debacle, one of the worst trades in NFL history, one of the worst personnel moves ever, a deal that gets you fired anywhere else, is because Brock Purdy came in and looked like a franchise quarterback and got MVP votes last year. So whatever it is they're going to do in the future, they're going to do it with Brock Purdy as their quarterback, and they're going to pay him what his market rate is. So we'll find out. They got their work cut out for them.
So you would stay with Purdy?
Yes.
Would you stay with Purdy and the exact same backups, or would you
backup quarterbacks?
change?
No, I would draft. My policy is to draft.
Who's your quarterback next? Who's in your quarterback room next year?
Brock Purdy in a 3rd or a 4th round pick. I mean, I don't know who those guys are right now. I haven't gotten into the draft stuff.
I would say my draft room
Actually,
next year would be
Brock
Purdy.
I'd have Daniel Jones in my quarterback room next year.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd have Brock Purdy, Brandon Allen, and Haynes King. Haynes King is the guy.
I do like a Haynes King. I can dig a Haynes King, but
he's kind of like a Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
he's fast.
I would have a Daniel Jones in there, and I would have a rookie in there because now you have the volatility of the rookie. You can get, a second Brock, something like that. And you have a Daniel Jones that, hey, maybe you can get him on a 2-year deal. Maybe you can swing him for something, but he gets to reclaim his whatever, maybe get another starting job somewhere else, or maybe here, and you work with that. But he's a sharp guy, not a very good quarterback, but he's a sharp guy. And who knows, maybe you get him outside of the environment of the New York Giants and things start to click and he can be average. He's won a playoff game.
It's interesting. Someone says Mordecai's upset, Larry. I can have Mordecai in the room too. I like Mordecai. I'm not joking around. I actually like Mordecai.
Yeah.
I would say, it would be interesting. Maybe do you bring Brock back and have nobody there who could step in? I don't know. There might be another way to look at it. But I definitely would go with Brock. I definitely would not go with Aaron Rodgers or any veteran quarterback. I would stay with Brock if I were Shanahan and Lynch. And I think they will, but I'm not 100% convinced.
24 years old and he's been to a Super Bowl. Like,
I know,
what are we doing?
Oh, I know. But there's a lot of people that are nervous about the way he's played. He's only like 8-7 in his last 15 games.
I get it.
All right. The 49ers, Kev pointed this out to me today. I threw this out to Forster. The Niners' rush EPA in weeks 1 through 8 was 10th in the league.
Yeah.
Since McCaffrey has come back in the last 2 weeks, their rush EPA has fallen to 21st in the league.
Yep.
Why? Is that simply is McCaffrey lost a step, or is McCaffrey at this point after the injury a downgrade from what they had, or is this not about McCaffrey and this is about the 49er offensive line? And they're not, because I'll say this, they cannot run it when they need to run it. They can't run it when they're behind. They can't run it. They can't run it when everybody knows they're going to run it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have to surprise you to run it. Why have the 49ers struggled to run it well in the last couple of weeks since Christian came back. I think most people looked at the run game, Dieter, and said, hey, it's a top 10 run game, and you're adding the reigning offensive player of the year, who's a running back. Man, you're going to have a really good offensive game plan as far as your run attack, and you should be able to carry that to the playoffs. And instead, they've regressed with McCaffrey. Why?
It's twofold. One, the initial excellence or extreme competence of this running game had nothing to do with the offensive line. It had everything to do with Jordan Mason and the fact that Jordan Mason was breaking tackles at a rate unlike anybody in the NFL. And a lot of those tackles were behind or at the line of scrimmage. So he was getting yardage, positive yardage on plays that should have been stopped. He was one of the best in the NFL. I think it's second or third in the NFL in yards above expectation. Okay. Say what you will about Garendo. He would run into the back of the offensive line twice. But if you blocked it up just a little bit, you gave him just enough, he could split that gap and go for 70. Right? He had that explosion on the one cut and go. He just doesn't have the vision yet. So both of those guys made a bad to average at best offensive line look pretty damn good because they were really good running backs who were perfect for the situation at hand, which is you're not getting big holes. You need somebody who is just going to pound through defenders, either by sheer speed or, in the case of Mason, sheer force. Christian McCaffrey looks 100% washed. The difference in McCaffrey is jarring. And I saw it in the Tampa game, and I called it out, but I also wanted to provide deference, right? First game back, long layoff. And I still want to provide that deference in his second game back, right? It's a long layoff.
You think he looks washed up, huh?
I think he looks washed up. Now, I cannot tell you certainly that it isn't in there, and it's not just rust, and it's going to break through at some point. But his inability to hit the hole in the run game, and there were a couple this week that were right there. His vision looks off. His burst is not there at all right now. And it might still be in there, but I have a hard time believing it, given that it looked worse this past week than it did the first game. It is really jarring watching him right now, because the difference between the Christian McCaffrey that we saw last year, the year before, at his best, and now is the difference between just a guy and one of the great players of all time. What made Christian
So you don't think that the offensive line stinks? You think that if they ran Mason instead of McCaffrey, he would run through these holes that McCaffrey can't get through?
Well, McCaffrey can't even get through the holes, and then I think the offensive line stinks either way. The difference is that Mason doesn't need holes because he can run dudes over. That's why he only got 8 games before he got injured. He can run dudes over. And the difference with Garendo is, yeah, okay, he's not getting these holes because the offensive line stinks, but every now and again, a blind squirrel finds a nut, and there is a hole. And when there is that hole and Garendo hits it, he's gone because he's got crazy explosion. What I see with McCaffrey, I used to see a player that glided across the field. Beautiful running back, right? He looked different than everybody else. Everyone else looked like they were working hard. He made it look so easy. And now all I see is a guy who's taking a lot of false steps, who's afraid to cut, and who generally isn't seeing it. I'd expect that the game would slow down for him a little bit the more that he plays, but all these extra steps that he's taking, it's unmistakable on the film. And the fear of him, he clearly does not trust his ability to cut up the field. And if you can't cut in an outside zone run game, we don't have anything to talk about. It's the same thing with Deebo Samuel. He can't cut. He can't plant a foot in the ground and go anymore. He doesn't have the lateral speed. He doesn't have that movement. It's gone. And Deebo, it hasn't gotten any better in 12 weeks. I have to think that McCaffrey's going to be along the same lines when he has not one but 2 Achilles injuries. So he's got to be afraid of planting off of either foot and going.
See, I don't think he's washed. I definitely think he hasn't looked like himself, but I don't see a dramatic difference from last year to this year.
Uh-oh.
But I'll say this. I don't like the idea of they had a top 10 running game. They were bringing McCaffrey back, and they just basically ignored the runners they had. I mean, Garendo's a game breaker, but you can't break the game if you don't touch the ball.
Right.
And for him not to touch the ball is criminal. I asked Shanahan this week, and he kind of made fun of me. But I said, hey, can you play Garendo, I don't know, with CMC? Can you play Mason with CMC? And he's like, you mean 2 running backs? And I'm like, I thought he meant like a running back and a fullback. So I'm like, no, yeah, or, flexed out as a receiver. He's like, you mean 2 running backs? And then he was being a smartass. He was like, yeah, can I play 2 running backs at the same time? Yeah, I can play 2 running backs at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, do it. I mean, what the hell? How long are you going to wait? You're 5-5. The season is being pissed away. You have slow ass receivers and a deep running back cachet. Use your fucking running backs. I mean, should I be even having to ask that question? I mean, you're forcing me to ask this question because you're not putting your best players on the field. You're sitting Mason, you're sitting Garendo for CMC when you have Ricky, I can't get open to save my fucking life, Pearsall.
Well, okay, that's a stretch. He's getting open.
He's not getting open. He had 1.6 yards of separation last week.
Yeah, because he got
2
targeted
targets to get nothing. But he got targeted twice to get nothing.
Correct.
And when he was targeted, he was covered.
Correct. That's where the separation comes in. You watch the
all
other
of the Niner receivers' separation are lower than the league average. None of their receivers are gaining separation. Put Garendo out there and run him on a fly pattern. If you just did that and never threw him a pass, you'd be better off than you are right now.
The separation stats, of course, are completely tied to targets. They don't check separation on routes.
I get it. But I mean, anybody can point to, and I've saw this with Kyle Posey, and it's like, dude, anybody can take a snapshot of a receiver open. That doesn't mean that he's open all day. That just means he was open for a second.
No, you're right. You're right. When I watch Pearsall, I see a guy who is getting open at a reasonable rate. It is not always open. It's very reminiscent of Brandon Ayuk earlier this year, to where it was like, man, he is getting open, but it never seems to be where Brock's looking his way. And I'm not in the meeting rooms. I can't tell you why that is. I can tell you this. Deebo has been the worst running back in the NFL this season in terms of rush yards over expectation. Every time he touches the ball, he gets 1.5 yards fewer than is expected based on the blocking. That's NFL's stat. So take it for whatever it's worth. Christian McCaffrey's getting -1 per carry. That's bottom 5 in the NFL. These guys look very similar to me right now, and that is nothing. I could not disagree more with you, Larry, on Christian McCaffrey doesn't look very, very different than he looked last year. He just looks like a shell of himself. He just looks like a random body they brought in. He looks like they put Jake Funk back there right now. It's a tough scene. Now, he's still pass proing great.
First of all, I think your expectations are way, way askew. I mean, come on. Okay. The guy hasn't played all year. Nobody steps in and just looks awesome. Your expectations have to be reasonable. If you don't play for 10 weeks, you didn't play at all in the preseason. You didn't play at all in the regular season.
He's playing.
You're not going to step into the lineup and be what you were last year.
That's great. Why is Kyle playing him like that then?
But I mean, I don't know. But I mean, nobody. Your expectation should not be that. Your expectation should be that he looks like a guy who has not played all year. And for a guy who hasn't played all year, I think he looks pretty good.
Okay.
But why would you think that he would just come right in after never playing at all and be as good as the guys or as good as he was last year when he was the reigning offensive player of the year? I mean, that's just a tall ask.
No, I would just like to see one fucking play where it looks like, oh, there he is. Just a flash. Haven't seen it once.
I thought the first handoff where he ran for 5 yards and showed good explosion, I thought he looked pretty good there. I mean, I'm not saying he's the same guy, but to me, he looks reasonably like the same guy considering how much time he's missed. And I think
how long are you willing to wait?
A reasonable person, I think, would give a running back like this 2, 3, 4 weeks before you would say, oh, yeah, he's not what he was. Mob Squad says CMC's on pace for 1,700 yards. Is he on pace for 1,700 yards? I don't know.
That's ridiculous.
To me, he looks very similar.
You saying he's rushing for 100 yards a game? Is that what I've heard? Let me know when.
Well, maybe he's saying if you extrapolate it out for a full season.
Yes, that would be 100 yards a game. They play 17 games. Like,
yeah.
What are we
well,
talking
he hasn't had 100 yards yet. I mean, so
he went for 39 yards and 79 yards. He has 118 yards on the flipping season at 3.7 yards per carry.
Yeah.
But we're the ones who are.
Yeah, I mean that somebody needs to do their math a little bit better.
Come on now.
No, but I'm just saying overall.
Oh, I didn't know the season was 35 weeks long.
Yeah. Overall, though, I don't think he looks dramatically different considering how long he's been out and expecting him to get better.
Okay.
But he also was playing at a very, very high level last year, and who knows if he can get back to that level. It's interesting to me that Shanahan always talks up all these running backs. Lynch, too. We love Patrick Taylor. We love Garenda. We love Mason. Well, as soon as McCaffrey comes back, it's like all those guys are all been assassinated. I mean, it's like, where are they? I mean, it's like, if you love these guys so much that you're going to profess all this love, I don't know, show them you love them by, I don't know, giving them a carry.
The idea is like Jordan Mason was clearly a great player for you to start the season. The only reason that you have a season right now is because Jordan Mason was out there carrying your ass for weeks on end, turning nothing into something repeatedly. And yes, he got injured. And yes, you needed another option, right? You don't want to go to Garendo full time. I get it, right? The vision's not there. I'd like to see more of him, but he is still a wild card. But now you're in a situation.
But that's why you don't use him as a runner. But that's not why you don't use him.
No. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, I can at least understand that logic. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. What I can't understand is a team that has appropriately handled the two running backfield before. I'm thinking Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey. I'm thinking before that even. Like, they have been able to handle two and giving rotation and all that. The idea that you wouldn't want to use for 10 carries a game a running back who is a bowling ball, someone who can create something out of nothing and set a physical tone to your offense, because you ain't fast, so you might as well be strong as shit. And the one guy outside of Juwan Jennings that I know is going to exact that toll that you're asking your offense to put out there, or you should be asking your offense to put out there, is ready, and you don't need to give him 25, 30 carries a game. You don't need to do that anymore. You can give him a limited run, but he can go in there and he can take some skulls in the meantime. But Kyle's just like, well, if we keep running Christian McCaffrey out here, maybe the rust will come off and he will have this season done, kaput, and over with. And then maybe Christian McCaffrey's rust is going to come off, or maybe not. But Kyle's willing to go down with that ship. And it's malpractice at this point, because you do have a running back that is unquestionably very good and is healthy, and you don't have to use him in the same way that you got him injured last time. Mob Squad, get the hell out of here.
Mob Squad saying he wasn't talking about rushing, Dieter. He's talking about rushing and receiving combined.
Make it clear. Yeah. Say what you mean.
But here's the thing on this.
Dipshit.
I don't understand why you would draft a guy like Garendo in the 4th round, then come out and have him show you that he is a dynamic playmaker who is literally 1 or 2 missed tackles away from a house call. I mean, this guy can take it to the house. I've been convinced. Okay. Yeah. Was I right about his lack of instincts and vision and feel? Yes, I was right about all of that, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because he is that big, that strong, that fast, that explosive. But my God, when you have a game breaker and you have got a collection of weapons that are as fucking slow as this Niner group of weapons, why you wouldn't flex out Garendo and just run him on go routes? If all he did was line up outside and just go deep on every play, he would have greater value than almost anybody else they could put out there, even if you didn't throw him the ball, just because he would stretch the field and you'd have to defend him. And then if the defender falls down, throw it to him and you got an easy touchdown. I don't understand, when you have a game breaker with 4.33 speed, why you would voluntarily sit that guy out. What, we don't want to put too much pressure on the opposing defense?
Yeah, right.
What
Make
we're
it easy
afraid
on 'em.
of. We're afraid of chunk yardage plays.
Well, they clearly are. They got to
I mean,
keep
come
Deebo
on.
on the field for 87% of the snaps and
Here's the
McCaffrey
other
on the
one.
field for 95. What
Why
are they
not?
showing you to earn those snaps right now?
Yeah, why not run? I mean, you're gonna run Deebo east-west when you have Garendo, who's like twice as fast.
It's unbelievable.
Let him run east-west.
Yeah, that's a great call.
Let's see if Garendo can get to the edge. Something tells me Garendo, if you handed Garendo the ball 6 or 7 times, I think there's a 75 fucking yard run in there every time, but they don't seem like they get it.
No.
And it's like I'm watching Ben Johnson, and I hate to bring up Ben Johnson because there's so many Niner fans who were calling for Ben Johnson. But man, Ben Johnson's red zone play calling is absolutely a clinic compared to what the Niners do in the red zone.
Well, to be fair, when you have 3 great receivers, the best offensive line in football, 2 great running backs, and a quarterback who will get the ball to them all because he's not doing anything but thinking about how to deliver the football, you should have a pretty good offense. That's
yeah.
Ben Johnson.
But I mean, the design, but it's not
just
year. Speed, or power. It's design. His design is
he's
phenomenal.
He's a great offensive play caller. He's absolutely great. I'm not sure that anyone could extract if you had to play the players the way that Kyle Shanahan has played the players. If this is the snap allocation that you had to use, which is of course ridiculous and should not be the way that you shouldn't have Deebo Samuel on the field for 87% of snaps. He doesn't give you anything as a receiver or a runner. I'm not saying take him out of the game entirely, but he's a bit player now, right? The less is more for Deebo Samuel at this point. Christian McCaffrey in there for 95% of the snaps. I mean, what are we pretending we're seeing here? You have 2 other good running backs who can give you something, and I get that he's your best pass catcher and he's your best pass protector, but he's not your best running back right now, and he is a running back by trade. And you're keeping him out there for all but 5% of the snaps. Like, it's ridiculous. If Ben Johnson had to take over this offensive line that we just saw, this wide receiver core in which you're getting Deebo Samuel more reps than Ricky Pearsall, even though Deebo Samuel hasn't separated from anybody in a month, if not longer. Like, if you gave him this, and especially with Saubert, and by the way, your backup tight end, Jalen Moore, Kyle Shanahan used up all his creativity trying to figure out ways not to put his backup tight ends on the field. He has 2 other players on this roster. He's carried them on the roster for weeks. In the case of Jake Ton, just the entire year. Why do you have them on your team if you decide when George Kittle is out, in fact, we're not going to bother using them at all? We're going to have Jalen Moore come on the field so that everybody on the defense knows, hey, we're running. Like,
but the thing is, you can't. I mean, they have too many receiving tight ends on the roster. You have Pline, on the practice squad. You have Tongas, and you have Braden Willis. You have Saubert, who's thought to be a good blocker, but he's nowhere close to Kittle. He's nowhere close to Charlie Werner. Go get a real blocking tight end and put Kittle in the pattern. I mean, it's just absolutely criminal, especially when you really figure out how much Kittle means to their red zone touchdown capability.
He's
to
the
not
only
put
one
him
who
on the
can win
field.
in man-to-man. He's the only one who can separate in man-to-man.
He's got to be in the pattern. They've got to find another tight end. I don't even care if it's Jalen Moore. That's fine with me. Put Jalen Moore out there. I don't even care. I don't even care if you give away that you're running. Just get a blocker and stop using Kittle as your blocker because you need him as a receiver. All right, we got 2 last ones here.
Yeah.
They play Sunday at Lambeau.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a lineup change. Give me something that you would do differently in this game that they've done thus far that's going to help them win. What would be?
I want to see. I don't want to see Deebo Samuel, but for 15 to 20 snaps, full stop.
And who do you want in his place?
I want Pearsall taking his wide receiver snaps almost exclusively with Cowing or even Conley coming in behind. I don't think Cowing's going to play. He's still in concussion protocol, so that's a tough break.
Yeah.
But I'm over. I don't want to see Deebo Samuel carrying the ball again, and I don't want to see Deebo Samuel out there unless it's a 3 wide receiver set. So last week, Pearsall got 37 snaps, and Deebo got 55. So that tells you and Jennings right above them at 60. So that just tells you that Deebo's the number 2 receiver, the classic Z, and that Pearsall is the guy who comes in on third downs, third and longs, any sort of 11 personnel situation. Flip it.
Why is Pearsall not doing anything? He didn't do anything in this last game.
Well, Brock didn't push it down the field once. There were a couple of hole shots that were available when I watched the film that because the protection was breaking down, oftentimes it was coming against overload blitzes to the weak side. He's basically locking in on the number 1 option a lot, and that number 1 option is Jennings, so he's just throwing it to him because he trusts him. It's tough. It's tough. They didn't practice together at all. The same reason that Ayuk wasn't getting the ball early in the year. Like, he was a little slow. The same thing, Pearsall probably doesn't know the playbook in its entirety, catching up to the speed of the game. I get it. Like, Ayuk coming in slow, but they didn't practice at all. And so Brock Purdy never had to look his way. You know who Brock Purdy looked to a lot in the preseason, in the training camp? He looked at Juwan Jennings because Juwan Jennings was out there taking skulls. He looked at Deebo Samuel a lot because Deebo Samuel was actually, light on his feet in training camp. And then he takes a couple of hits and now he doesn't have anything for you. So he was looking to George Kittle time and time again because Kittle was out there practicing. So they just haven't had any time to work together. And this is, at this point, an offense predicated not on scheme, but on trust, because there's so little to be gained. You got to get it to a guy that you trust. And right now, the only 2 guys that he trusts are Jennings and Kittle. So
I
no, I got a frog in my throat because I get my.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We're at the end anyway. It's going to be interesting to watch the Niners try to defend this Packer passing game. Watson's playing well. Dobbs, Jaden Reed. Reed's in the slot primarily. They run a lot of 12 personnel when they have a lead with 2 tight ends. They run a lot of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers when they're behind and they want to open it up. I think they're going to go up top to Watson a bunch in this game.
I really like the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive line, they've had a lot of penalties in the red zone, though. So that's
true.
kind of my roster change is I'm sitting Campbell for D. Winters. D. Winters had the best PFF grade. He played 10 snaps. I realize he falls off blocks. He's kind of underpowered. He's a little weak.
I'll tackled with his arms once.
I'll take speed over Campbell right now and just take my chances.
I'm with you.
And I'm making that move right now. All right, last one. We will skip next week. Okay.
Thank goodness. My family is okay.
We will skip next week. Next week is Thanksgiving. But both of you and I both enjoy eating. So why don't we what's the essential part of Thanksgiving? If you can call your shot, what is the essential Thanksgiving fare? Are you a turkey man? Are you a ham man? Are you a white meat turkey, dark meat turkey? Are you a deep fried turkey? Are you a bake it in the oven turkey, smoked turkey?
I smoke the turkey.
How do you do it? How long do you smoke a turkey for? Because
let's
say you got a 20-pound turkey. How long would it take to smoke?
That'd be about 3.5 hours. Depends on how high. I run it pretty hot. I'll run it up to like
3.5 hours. That's faster than cooking it in the oven.
I run it up to like 400, 450.
Okay.
And I spatchcock it.
What'd you say?
I spatchcock it.
What does that mean?
I cut it right down the middle and then I crack its breastbone so that it's completely flattened. So you have
it's raw or after it's cooked?
No, you do it before it's cooked.
Okay.
So you take out the backbone of the turkey. You can do this with chickens too. It's really good. And then you pull it so you got these 2 breasts apart, and then you just take your palm of your hand and you crack the breastplate, the cartilage in the breastplate. And so now you have 2 breasts facing up. So now that's like a big flat bird right on the smoker grates. It's fantastic. It's incredible.
Okay.
Because you're already carving it. So what the hell?
What do you smoke it with? You have like certain kind of chips or certain kind of what do you use?
Yeah, classic like hickory. Okay. I think hickory is a good one.
So you like it smoked and it has that smoked flavor? Is it?
Yeah.
Is the skin get what happens to the color of the skin? Does it get dark or what?
I mean, it's like a dark. It's like a dark burnt orange. I'll dry brine it overnight. So that's just seasoning it overnight and letting it settle in the fridge. And then, you can get it. You can get it cooked pretty fast, shockingly fast. And I think a lot of people think low and slow on it, but honestly, I crank it up. I find it better if you just go. I love it.
Cecil music. I love two breasts. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Don't we all?
There you go.
But what about that third one? And what was that? What was that sci-fi movie? Final.
So what is essential? Okay. So we're going to have a Thanksgiving draft.
Yeah.
So you got your turkey. Are you a white meat turkey or dark meat turkey?
I'm a drumstick man. I want the full leg. Meat. I want I want the dark meat, and then I want to save the white meat for the sandwiches later. If I had to, my second pick would be mac and cheese. I'm a big mac and cheese guy.
You know, it's so funny. I was looking at traditional sides for Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
And it was a regional thing. It was like regional sides.
Right.
And like in California, our regional side is stuffing. That's what people have the most, right?
Love a good stuffing. Yeah.
But in many, many parts of the country, different regions of the country, a lot in the South and Southwest, mac and cheese is a major staple of Thanksgiving. We never had mac and cheese for Thanksgiving. That was never one of our things.
I also put it on
mashed potatoes, stuffing, turkey, cranberry.
Oh, I'm not a cranberry man personally, but I can
fresh
respect
cranberry
those
with some
to
orange
observe.
zest.
Yeah.
Let's see, cranberry. My mother used to do like these like Jello molds.
Nope.
Like like in a decorative circle or something like that, and she'd put it in this like a and then there'd be like a Jello mold kind of thing.
Something in there.
Pineapple or whatever it was,
Did you eat it?
That was one of her things. The other thing that we would do, she would go pumpkin pie and mincemeat pie. Have you ever had mincemeat?
I'm married to a Scot. I've had mincemeat.
So what is mincemeat?
It's just beef.
It's beef?
It's like seasoned beef. Yeah.
It's real meat.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds awful.
No, it's pretty good actually.
It is pretty good. But that's so that's what we used to go with.
Minced is just another word for sliced. Or
somebody
chopped.
Somebody says it's ground pork.
Oh, you know what? You might be right. It's so seasoned up. I couldn't tell you. I just always presumed it was beef.
We have Lo-Fi Merchant says Larry looks like he's in an oven.
That's fair.
Thank you. Yes,
Kenny,
I'm cooking.
Kenny Rogers Roasters over here.
Green bean casserole. No, I can't go green bean.
I enjoy green beans. I'm not doing the casserole though. I don't need that cream and mushroom nonsense.
No, but the green beans.
Larry, can you explain? Can you diagram that sentence for me? I'm interested if you.
Green bean casserole is actually goated.
Yeah, what does that mean to you, Larry?
Green bean casserole is like one of the best.
Yeah. Okay. Respect.
That's
Your
what
Gen Z slang is on.
Yeah. Right.
Says the middle-aged millennial.
Is that? Did I get that right?
No, you nailed it. That's exactly right.
Yeah. He's saying that green bean casserole is like the goat.
Is the goat?
Come on.
Yeah.
Anything with casserole in it is not you're not the goat of anything. If you're, and I don't care what it is. It could be Playboy centerfold casserole, and it still sucks. You know what I mean? As soon as you throw in casserole, it's you've lost me.
Yeah.
Dude.
That would have been too blue even for you. You would have lost your monetization if I said it.
We got this one from Mac707. Sam, Larry. Who's Sam?
I think it's
never heard of mac and cheese for Thanksgiving. I never had it either.
Times change. I don't think I had it growing up, but then I was told that it was possible, and I said I love mac and cheese, so here we go.
Kev is dropping in the chat. Larry is the turkey. Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna spatchcock you.
My brother-in-law did a deep fried turkey.
Is this the same guy who does the fireworks? Because that's like a Venn diagram.
No,
of guys who have a lot of fireworks and deep fried turkeys. That's a circle.
No. What my brother is the one who loves the fireworks, but
Okay.
my brother-in-law, this would be my wife's
Yeah.
sister's husband,
Oh,
did
wow.
a deep fried turkey, and I just assumed, Dieter, that it was going to be oily. Right. I mean, doesn't that make sense? It's gonna be it's cooking in oil, submerged in oil. It's got to be oily.
Yeah.
This guy did it in first of all, I've seen it done wrong a million times. This guy knew how to do it, did it right. The turkey, if you deep fry it, the cavity where the bones are and the outside cook evenly because it's submerged in the oil.
Mhm.
So you have a bird that's 100% cooked evenly inside and outside.
Yep.
So like all that meat that's like on the, sometimes like if you do like a turkey, sometimes the breast meat on the outside gets a little dry. Sometimes you got to cover it with foil. Sometimes to get the rest of the turkey cooked.
Why do you think I spatchcock? Come on now.
Yeah, there you go. That's why you're doing it. But what I'm saying is, it's you've got the turkey is cooked perfectly when you deep fry it, and like there's no like part of the near the carcass where sometimes it's like a little pink or maybe a little underdone or whatever. That's it. It's cooked absolutely the same from the bone all the way out to the end. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't believe how good it was. And it's not oily at all. The flavor is fantastic, and there's none of that kind of pink on the inside.
So you going for it? Is that the plan?
Well, no, I can't do it myself. I mean, I wouldn't trust myself to do it. I couldn't do it. I've seen people submerge the bird, slowly into the vat of oil, and a lot of times these people make mistakes because the bird's not fully, defrosted, and then all of a sudden it just starts exploding.
That sounds awesome. You should do that.
Yeah, no, I will not be doing that. I will not explode my house. I will not destroy my neighbor's house. I will not ruin everything. That's going to do it for us. So, okay. So, you're going back for seconds.
Yeah.
A day after Thanksgiving. What has to be on the plate?
Day after Thanksgiving?
After. Somebody said there's nothing like a turducken, which is a chicken cooked inside of a duck, cooked inside of a turkey, or is the duck the smallest? Does it go duck inside of a chicken inside of a turkey?
No, I think it's turkey, duck, chicken.
Turkey,
like Cornish
duck,
game hen, duck, chicken. I think that's how.
Yeah.
Or turkey. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But I love me some reheated potatoes. But all I'm looking for, 2 pieces of white bread, some mayo, and some turkey. Like, I'm gold. That's all I need.
It's so funny. My favorite, one of my favorite restaurants in the city or in the Bay Area is actually in Orinda. Have you ever been to the deli that does? It does like turkey and ham, and it's like a Hofbrau. It's called something deli in Orinda. I forget the name of it.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
It's really, really good. But I will go there and I will get a turkey sandwich on a soft roll with nothing but turkey gravy. So I don't go with mayo, mustard, not a real sandwich, just turkey, sliced white meat turkey on a soft white roll with nothing but turkey gravy with a side of turkey gravy to dip.
That's incredible. That's a win of a day. And we can all have that if we just cook way too large of a bird on Thursday.
There we go. Here we go. This one from Woodpit 420. Open-faced sandwich is the bomb.
Love it.
Yes.
My dad used to take us out for dinner on Wednesday nights to this diner in Oak Park, Illinois. And he'd always get the open-faced turkey sandwich. It was just like mashed potatoes and bread and turkey with gravy on top. He'd eat that every Wednesday. I can't believe he's still with us.
Oh my God. Kev in the back room says, it's incredible that 600 people are in here listening to you guys talk about food for 20 minutes.
Yeah. But
that's going to do it for us.
Look at how can you believe anything, but we know what we're talking about. Football, morons. Turkey, we're on.
Lo-Fi Merchant says, Larry said turkey 30 times just now. Turkey. I'll give you my one Thanksgiving story that was pretty good. So I was working at a sports talk radio network in the mid 90s. I was scouting for the Cardinals, and I was working as a salesperson in a sports talk radio network. And I started listening to the guys that were on the air, and I always assumed that I could never do this because I assumed that the people who did this were awesome. So
little did you know.
So I started listening to the guys that I was selling to these radio stations around the country, and I realized that these guys were terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, awful. The worst talk show host of all time. So I went to the program director of the network and I said, "Hey, I'd like to fill in. I can do this." And he's like, "No, you can't. You have no experience." And I said, "Well, I was a communications major in college and I know sports. Heck, I'm scouting in the NFL. I'm scouting in the Canadian League. I think I can do it. I've heard these other guys and I'm pretty sure I can do it as well as they can." He's like, "You don't have any experience." I'm like, "I know, but how about give me a try?" He's like, no experience. This is not where you get experience. This is national radio. And I said, "Okay, how about this? Do me a favor. We get to the holidays. If somebody wants a day off and you're looking for a fill-in, call me up and I'll do it." He said, "All right." Now it's Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 1996. And he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about doing Thanksgiving night, Sports Overnight America? 5 lines, 5 hours, 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. You'll have a co-host, and you'll get tons of phone calls. Just take calls all night long." I said, "Great, I'll do it." So now I'm super excited. I'm at my parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner. My mom feeds us a ton. We eat at 2:00 in the afternoon. Right. Now I'm getting ready to go down to the studio on Broadway in Sansom to do the show. It's like 8:00, 8:30. Show starts at 10. I'm going to go in early and prep. My mom's like, "Oh, you know what? Here, I'll make you some turkey sandwiches. You'll really need this. You'll be up late." And I said, "Okay, that's a great idea." So she makes me 3 or 4 turkey sandwiches with the gravy, the whole deal, wraps them in foil, puts them in a bag, hands them to me. I'm off and running. Well, you know what? Turkey makes you tired.
Yes, it does.
And I pound like 3 turkey sandwiches at like 10:40 at a commercial break. Dieter, I seriously, it's my first show that I've ever done. I'm trying like crazy to impress, and I'm falling asleep on the show. It's Thanksgiving night. It's 1:00 in the morning. I got 2 hours left. I'm like literally falling asleep.
That's incredible.
Falling asleep, pounding turkey sandwiches. So there you go. My mother almost made me lose out on any broadcast opportunities by feeding me turkey sandwiches, lots of red wine, and then literally I almost fell asleep in the middle of the first show I ever did on national radio. I almost fell asleep.
Couldn't have been that bad. They gave you a second one.
They gave me a second one. There you go. All right. MF says Larry should redo this show Thanksgiving night, and he only has to talk about the San Francisco Giants. Oh my God, that was bad. And Kev says Larry was drunk on turkey. All right, that's going to do it for us. Let's make sure we have all the supers. Yeah, we got that one. It just doesn't matter. This one from Anquan Bolden was powerful wide receiver, or is memory bad? That's a good one. The Jedi says, I think Lynch has to go. The draft pick misses. Bill is due. Kyle needs a GM who has a full roster and draft control. Greg Venta says, I remember when Steve Young spoke about being a quarterback with a confident play caller head coach, said when a coach calls a play that don't work, he needs to rely on his quarterback to get out of that bad play. Think Brock Purdy can?
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think he could. I definitely think he could. By Victor says, why is Devondre Campbell still starting?
That's a great question.
It's a great question. I would guess nude pictures. Andre Hanna says, if the Niners lose the next 2 games and go 5-7, is there any point in having Greenlaw come back this year?
No, not unless he really, really wants to, but really then you got to save him from himself.
Yeah, he's a free agent, though, so he's going to want to come back no matter what. Dieter, thanks to Better, thanks to Pig in a Pickle, thanks to Sharp Corners, thanks to Dieter, thanks to all of you. Dieter, I'll give you the final word.
I really hope Brock Purdy plays on Sunday because I would like something interesting to watch.
And on that note, have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you